Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is you're going to notice there's a piece of meat right here. Okay, now this is basically like the calf muscle of the deer. So what we're going to do here, and you can actually see the bone right here in front of you. You can see the contours of the bone as this femur travels down through here. Okay, now what we want to do is we're just going to start on this side and we're just going to cut right down along here, and like I said, staying right against the bone. Now be careful not to saw it directly against the bone, because wild game bones are very hard and this will dull your knife very quickly. So try to stay at a 45-degree angle to the bone and come right along there. We want to cut right back, take that right off. Okay, now as I said, this is just sort of like a little piece of calf meat or a piece of forearm meat. We just want to keep follow right down along the bone. Okay, cut that right off. Okay, peel that back. Just keep working this up along here towards what we're going to call the knee of the animal, the knee joint, which is right here. Okay? Now that we've made it to that, we've deboned this side, we're going to go ahead and switch over to the other side. And once again, you can actually see the contour of the bone right here. You can follow it right along. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the animal here, just right about the knee. Don't go above the knee, because this up in here is where our steaks and our roasts are going to come from. This is our good meat up in here. This down in here is just referred to as shank, muscle, connective tissue. So it's basically going to go for hamburger or smoked products. Okay, so we want to cut in right here, go right in next to the bone again. Like we said, remember, you want to stay right tight to the bone. And this boning knife works great for this because it's nice and flexible and it'll curve and bend around those bones. So we start right along here, and remember, stay right tight to the bone, but don't saw directly against it. Come the whole way back and cut that off. Peel that right back, push that off there. As you can see, we've got this bone, we've got the meat removed fairly clean already. We're going to go ahead and just keep cleaning it right up, just like so. Peel that back. Now a great thing to remember whenever you're deboning your meat is when you're trimming up your bones, it's a great idea to go ahead and trim the bones while they're still attached to the large whole muscle sections of the animal. This holds them still, they don't flip around on you, and it's very easy to get hurt whenever you're trying to hold onto a bone that's flipping and turning and spinning in your hands. So just leave it attached here, and we'll just go ahead, and we've got a little piece of meat right here. We can just go ahead and trim that right off of there, set that off to the side. That's going to be for hamburger trimmings. And we can just sit here and trim this bone up right now while it's still attached to the rest of the quarter. We can flip it over this way. Just go ahead and sit here now and just trim off any extra meat that's on that bone that we want to take off. Right here we can see there's a little piece of meat right here. We can just trim that, take it right out of there, just like so. And this is all great for burger meat. That's a great thing about being your own processor. You can really take your time and really get your money's worth out of your wild game animals. Whereas if you're in a commercial packing plant type environment and you have to cut so many deer per hour, you don't have the time to take, and spend all that time with each and every individual person's wild game animal. Okay, now, you'll notice here that this knee joint, now that we've taken all the shank muscle off there and the connective muscles, you can notice that this knee joint moves back and forth very fluently. So what we can do here, we can go ahead and follow this the rest of the way out. This bone just travels in a straight line directly from where we see the ball socket here, where we disconnected it from the hip joint in the pelvis area. It just follows a direct line straight back to this knee joint that we're working with right now. It's just a straight line right there. So we can go ahead and just come straight back along that and remove it, or we can go ahead and take this knee joint apart. So what we'll do here is we'll just enter in right here. We're going to show you how to do this. Now for beginning meat cutters, a lot of times, it's not really necessary to remove this knee joint. You can do so if you want, or you can remove this in one whole piece. If you start having trouble and you're struggling to get this knee joint apart and you feel like you're working too hard and your knife's in there and it's cracking and making noise, then just go ahead and take that out whole, just like that. But what we'll do is we'll show you how just to take that apart right there at that knee joint. Just lift up on it just like that. And remember, you're either in the joint or you're not in the joint. You can't saw at those bones because it'll dull your knife. So you're either in the joint or you're not in the joint. And just take that right off. We'll remove that bone right out of there, just like so. Okay, then we can go ahead and take our time, trim the rest of the meat off of that bone, and then we'll have that all cleaned up. Now, for the bone that travels straight down the middle, as I said before, you can see right here, this is the end of the joint where we just took the knee off of. Right there's the hip socket where it was attached to the pelvis. we're just going to go in right inside the hip socket here, and we're going to follow it in a straight line right down to where we just took that knee joint apart at. We're going to stay right next to the bone and follow it right down through there. Okay? Open it back up again. Now don't go too much deeper than the bone. If you go in there too deep, there's good steak meat right on the other side of that bone. So just go in about as deep as that bone and bring it right back. Cut right back along there, and we're going to go right around this socket right here where we just removed that knee joint. Okay? We can turn it around now. Follow it right up the other way. We're going to do the other side now. Come right along here. Stay right tight to the bone. As I said before, you know, lay that knife on there. And this boning and fillet knife is a really great knife. It's very flexible. You can lay it on there and just follow that bone right out and really remove these bones really clean. Okay, follow that right up to the joint there, the hip socket where we took it apart from the pelvis bone. Follow that right up there. And just keep working your way around until you get up underneath it, and then just lift up on it and pull it right out of there. And like I said before, hold it in there while it's still connected, and go ahead and trim it up the best you can and take all the burger meat off of it while it's still attached. You can trim this up really nice. Okay, work your way around there and just bring that bone right out. Now you'll notice there's a little socket right here also. Now take that bone right out of there. Okay, now there's a lot of really great cuts in the hind quarter. We can do a lot of great things with this. There's a lot of roast in there, a lot of steaks. Here's a little kneecap piece that's on the end right there. You can take that out of there, set it off to the side. Now what you'll notice about the hind quarter is it's seamed apart into about 4 different muscle groups. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and seam this apart into the different muscle sections. This right down here is actually the shank meat, which we talked about earlier. Now what we can do here is you'll notice that there's seams here. And if we just push and pull on that, you can see these seams start to come right apart. Even just by pushing on it. I don't even need to use a knife to do this. I can just push and pull that right apart. Now I can actually see the 4 different muscle groups just by pushing on that. Right here's the shanks muscle right here. Here's the top round muscle here. Here's the bottom round muscle. And right here's the tip. Okay, you can see all 4 sections right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and remove them right at the seams. We'll just take our knife, cut right along here, and just peel that right out. It's very similar to the skinning procedure that we did when we were skinning the animal. There's just a connective tissue that seams these muscles together, and you can see that connective tissue right there. And as we cut on that connective tissue, we can see those muscle groups seaming right apart. Now this is the top round right here. This is a very good cut of meat, so we want to take that right off. And there's our top round. Okay, now here's our bottom round with the eye of round attached to it. I know a lot of you have seen the eye of round in a grocery store, the beef eye of round. Right here that is. It's right here on the side of the bottom round. Okay, we're going to classify that as one muscle group though. We'll just pull this right apart. I can almost tear that clear apart. Okay, then there's that little connective tissue. You can seam that right off there and take it right apart. Okay, now that we have our 4 different muscle groups here, okay, the shank muscle, as I said before, there's a lot of connective tissue in here. There's not a lot that we can do with this other than use it for ground meat and smoked meat. You can also use it for stewing meat. You can use it for canning meats if you'd like. But one thing that I'd urge you to do is go through this bottom half of the shank meat, and this has actually got another nickname called the rat tail. Okay, and we can just peel that apart too. Everything is seamed together. We can seam this, what they call the rat tail. We can seam this right out of here. Okay, take this here. You can see here that there's a lot of really tough connective tissue here. We're going to cut that off, trim that right out of there. This actually won't go for hamburger. It won't go through your grinder. So we're just going to throw it into the scrap bin. Okay, and we'll take this piece of meat right here. And as I said before, you can use this for canning meat. You can use it for stewing meat. Whatever you'd like to do with this, or you can just put it off to the side for hamburger. That's about all that it's really good for. You can't cut any steaks out of that. You really can't use it for a roast because there's just entirely too much connective tissue in this shank muscle. Okay, now this little piece right here, we're going to just take that, and it'll also, once again, it'll seam apart. And if you take your time and seam this all apart, you can get some really good cuts out of this next piece right here. We're going to come right along the back side here, and here's another piece of shank muscle that's right in the middle of this. Okay, we're going to pull that right out of there. See, you can actually see it if you cut into it. You can see in the middle of it there's a lot of shank and connective tissue in the center of that. We'll set that off to the side. Now this piece right here, we can use